Hi, and welcome to the very first episode of Fonder Direct Monthly Roundup, the March edition. As the name suggests, we will give an overview of the happenings within the fund market with the information and statistics provided by Fondbolagens Förenings for the month. On top of this, we will then take an in-depth look at the relevant fund from one of our affiliates. Fonder Direkts is an independent arm of Nyheterna Direkt, the leading newswire in the Nordics. So let's get to it. The overall consensus is that there has been very cautious investing into funds as the stock market has been quite volatile over the past months. There was a clear movement from equity funds into less exposed funds which have a holding of bonds. There was almost a 60 billion Swedish crown decrease in fund assets, really outlining the overall sentiment of the investor market. According to Fredrik Patterson from Fondbolagens Förenings, fund investors prioritized lower risk during March and chose primarily fixed income funds and balanced funds in their new savings. It is noteworthy to mention that there has been close to 7 billion crowns of new savings into index funds in 2018 so far, and just over 1 billion crowns into bond-based funds. If we look at top performing funds for the year to date so far, performing at over 20% is Tundra Vietnam, Silk Africa Lions at just over 16%, and SEB following closely behind at 15% growth on their Norway-focused fund. Unfortunately, funds such as Alpha Sigma Opportunities and RPM Galaxy have really taken a bullet for the year so far. Looking at Morningstar changes from their last update, there were no new 5-star achievers. However, the following funds moved from a 3 to a 4 rating. No fund lost their 5-star status, but interesting, Spiltan Active Fund Sverige has been lowered from a 2 to a 1. Moving ahead, looking at a fund that may have been affected by the cautious investing in a little bit more detail, the Coeli Frontier Fund had a growth rate of 9.3% year to date, which is 3% better for the MSCI Frontier Index. This is somewhat expected, bearing in mind that the top performing fund for the year so far is a Vietnam fund, and this Coeli Frontier Fund is heavily weighted in this sector with a 12.5% exposure. Looking at the bigger picture, Asian frontier markets as a whole suffered in early 2015, which resulted in a downward trend for the sector. Coeli was highly exposed to the Asian market at this time and suffered, which can be seen. Coeli had stated that this flattish result was due to the fund's large underweight in Argentina compared to the MSCI. Regardless, you can see in the graph that they have stayed ahead of the MSCI by taking a long-term investor stance on companies that have a domestic focus looking over the quality rather than quantity, and this can be seen in their holdings positions of just 36 companies. This is a 5-star rated fund by Morningstar with an expense ratio of 1.85%, and this fund was launched in March 2014 and has had a growth average of just over 15% each year with a total of 62%. Interestingly, this is ahead of the MSCI equivalent index by approximately 10%, as their MSCI only grew by 52% during the same period. When asked how Coeli stayed ahead of the MSCI with regards to their frontier funds, they stated that they avoid countries with a poor long-term track record of reform as they have a higher likelihood of destroying value, and subsequently there is a low correlation to comparable indices, leading to outperformance in times of stress. So that's all for Fonder Direct for March, and we will be back again next month to talk about how capital is moving in the fund markets. See you then.